My name is Calder. I've never really told this story out loud, not fully. And even now, writing it, my hands hesitate between each sentence. For most of my adult life, I believed marriage was about choosing the same person every day, even when it wasn't easy. Even when it got quiet, especially when it got quiet. Lorna and I met in college, two people who couldn't have been more different. She loved the city. I loved the woods. She thrived in crowds. I got headaches in supermarkets. But we fit in a way that made sense to us, or at least it used to. We've been married for 14 years. That's a lot of Tuesdays, a lot of late-night grocery runs, a lot of apologies. And somewhere in the middle of all that, I stopped noticing the shift. Or maybe I noticed, and I just didn't want to believe it was real. I'd see her across the room, half smiling at something on her phone, and wonder if that was the same smile she used with me back when we still stayed up talking until the sun bled through the blinds. But I always looked away. I made dinner. I folded the laundry. I held on. The first time I felt her slipping away wasn't during a fight or after something dramatic. It was when she started saying, "I" more than "we." When she came home from her work dinners a little more radiant than when she left. When she stopped asking about my day but still expected me to ask about hers. I used to think those were small things, just byproducts of time. But now I know they were warnings, whispers of something bigger. Last fall, we went to a friend's backyard anniversary party. Everyone was drinking cider, talking about aging parents and mortgage rates. Lorna stood with a group near the fire pit, laughing too loud at a story I hadn't heard before. One I didn't recognize, told by a man I'd never met. His name was Ezra. The way she looked at him, not like she loved him, not even like she wanted him, but like he was a better version of the life she wished she had. That was the moment. That was when the knot in my chest started forming, and I knew it wasn't going away. I didn't say anything that night. I smiled when she looked at me. I drove us home while she scrolled through photos on her phone and hummed along to some song from her past. But when we got home, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the floor. I waited for her to ask me what was wrong. She didn't. She just changed into her oversized sleep shirt and turned off the light. The silence became our rhythm after that. We weren't fighting. There were no slamming doors or cruel words. Just distance. Me talking into the air, her listening with only half an ear. One morning, I watched her sip coffee and check her planner, and I realized I didn't know what she was planning anymore. I didn't know where she was going or who she was seeing. And worse, she didn't care that I didn't know. The day it all broke open started like any other. She was getting dressed for a dinner party I hadn't been invited to. Her dress was new. Her lipstick was darker than usual. I asked quietly if we could talk before she left. She gave me that look, the one that said I was interrupting, that she was already halfway out the door in her mind. But she sat down across from me, arms crossed. I began explaining how I felt. Not accusing, not blaming, just trying to reach her. Telling her I missed us, that I couldn't keep pretending nothing was wrong. That's when she stood up, grabbed her clutch, and said the words I didn't expect to come out of her mouth. Not after 14 years. "You can either listen to what I need, or you can leave. But I won't keep living in your quiet." And she said it in front of our friends, who had just walked in through the door behind her to carpool to the party. The room went still. Even she looked surprised that she'd said it that loud. But I didn't say a word. I just picked up my keys, gave her a look she'd never seen before, and walked out. Not angry, not broken, just done. But the story didn't end there, because walking out wasn't the hardest part. The hardest part was what came next. I didn't drive far that night. I didn't need to. I pulled into an empty grocery store parking lot 3 blocks away, parked beneath the flickering glow of a dying street lamp, and just sat there. I remember the way the light made the windshield look cracked, even though it wasn't. Funny how your mind starts noticing flaws in everything once you finally accept that something's broken. I wasn't angry. I didn't pound the steering wheel or scream or cry. I just sat there, stunned, like my body had shown up, but my mind hadn't quite caught up yet. That moment at the house kept playing in my head over and over. Lorna standing there like she was giving a speech, her arms tied across her chest, chin tilted like she was rehearsed. That look she gave me, like I was interrupting a life that no longer had space for me in it. What I didn't expect, sitting there in that empty lot, was how calm I felt. Not peaceful, but emptied, like I had finally set something down after carrying it for far too long. I think some part of me had been walking away from her for years, just in smaller steps I didn't notice. The silence between us wasn't new. It was just finally loud enough for everyone else to hear. I went to my brother Aldrich's place that night. He's the kind of person who doesn't ask questions unless you offer answers. He opened the door, took one look at my face, and simply said, "You can take the guest room. Towels are under the sink." That's all. That was the kind of kindness I didn't know I needed. For 3 nights, I stayed there. I didn't text her. She didn't text me. I stared at the ceiling in the dark and realized that I hadn't truly slept in that house for months, maybe years. I'd been resting next to someone who wasn't really next to me anymore. On the 4th morning, I went back. The house felt smaller than I remembered. Stiller than ever. I walked through each room like I was seeing it for the first time. The photos on the mantel suddenly felt like props. A smiling couple frozen in a moment that no longer existed. There was a note on the kitchen counter in her handwriting. Not folded, not addressed. "We both need space. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. No love, Lorna." No apology, not even punctuation. I didn't pack. I didn't argue. I didn't write a note back. I grabbed my laptop, a few changes of clothes, and the stack of letters she used to write me in our first year of marriage. She doesn't even remember they exist. But I kept them. I kept them in the drawer beneath the old record player, the one we bought at that antique shop in San Luis Obispo during our 3rd anniversary trip. Back when her laugh sounded real, and she still reached for my hand without needing a reason. That night, I checked into a small inn near the coast. Nothing fancy, just the kind of place with heavy quilts and the smell of salt in the curtains. And for the first time in a very long time, I gave myself permission to sit in silence, not because I was being ignored, but because I wanted to hear my own thoughts. That was the night I realized something that changed everything. She hadn't left me. She had just stopped being in it a long time ago. Some mornings arrived with no shape, just color. The light through the window at the inn was pale blue that day, cold almost. I watched it crawl across the carpet without moving. The ocean was somewhere beyond the wall, whispering, not calling. I used to think time moved in a straight line. First the promise, then the unraveling, then the end. But now I realize endings don't wait their turn. They begin quietly, long before you see them. Lorna used to hum when she made coffee, a tune she never fully remembered, always looping the same part. She did it less in the last 2 years. I don't think I noticed it leaving, but I feel the absence now, like missing a step on the stairs. There's something strange about sleeping in a bed that isn't yours and realizing it doesn't matter. I didn't miss our mattress with the dent her shoulder left on her side. I didn't miss her perfume on the sheets. I didn't even miss her voice. That terrified me. I walked out to the rocky edge of the shoreline behind the inn. Seaweed, like ribbon, tangled across the rocks. A seagull with a limp was dragging 1 foot through the sand. I sat there for nearly 2 hours, watching the tide edge forward and retreat like it was unsure of something. It reminded me of her. The way she would reach for my arm when she thought someone was watching. The way she'd smile at me across the table but check her phone while doing it. She had this way of performing connection but never living in it. I used to convince myself it was temporary, that we were just tired, just busy, that it would pass, that she would come back to us. But what I didn't see, what I refused to see, was that I was clinging to something that had already lost its shape. Like hugging, like holding breath. And in that quiet, I let go of a question I'd been holding for too long. What did I do wrong? The answer was simple and it didn't sting. Nothing. I showed up. I stayed soft. I asked. I listened. I tried. I chose her even when she stopped choosing me. Later that evening, a couple checked into the room next to mine. Newlyweds. I could hear their laughter through the wall. He called her by some nickname I don't remember now. Something light and teasing. The sound of it made my chest tighten, but not from jealousy. From something else, a realization. I don't want that version of love again. The one where you're always auditioning, where your worth depends on being interesting enough, loud enough, not too much, not too still. I don't know what's coming next. I'm not making bold declarations. I'm not vowing to start over. But I'm learning, quietly, how to sit with truth without rushing to fix it. And the truth is this. I was in love with someone who loved being admired more than being known. That night, I wrote a letter not to send, just to see the words on paper, to remind myself it happened, that it mattered, that I mattered. The rooms had changed shape long before I left. That's the thought I keep returning to. It wasn't her packing a suitcase or the way the front door closed behind me that marked the ending. It was the way she no longer looked up when I entered a room. The way she blinked slowly through my words like I was a language she forgot how to translate. I see it now, all of it, clearer than I wish I did. The morning she repainted the bedroom without asking me. The dinner she cooked but didn't wait for me to sit down. The party where she called me just called her, not my husband, to someone I didn't know. I should have seen it. I should have said something. But what do you say when love doesn't scream as it leaves? It just quietly evaporates. And then there was the silence. Not empty, not peaceful, but weighted. Like we were both trying not to break something fragile that had already shattered days ago. I remembered one afternoon in the 3rd year of our marriage. We were at a small roadside diner outside Yuma. She ordered waffles with blueberries and cream. She made fun of me for drinking black coffee like a serious old man. She touched my knee under the table. We laughed. We left holding hands. What do you do with that memory when the person sitting across from you now orders salad in silence and stares at her screen like it might save her from having to speak to you? I stopped asking where I went wrong. I started asking why I stayed quiet for so long. And that hurts more. Not because I regret loving her, but because I kept offering pieces of myself to someone who no longer wanted to hold them. At the inn, I've started walking every morning before sunrise. The cold bites a little. There's always one car driving by at the same time, a silver pickup with foggy windows. I nod to the driver, he nods back. That's the only exchange I have most mornings, and somehow it feels more real than the last dozen conversations I had with Lorna. I haven't responded to her message, the one she finally sent. Just 3 words, we should talk. But I don't want to talk. Not yet, maybe not ever. Because talking means I have to shrink again. Make myself quieter, smaller, digestible. And I don't want to be someone's half-measured version of enough anymore. I used to think the hardest thing in life was being left. It's not. The hardest thing is knowing you were never really seen and pretending that was okay. The cafe was warm, but Calder kept his jacket on. He sat by the window, left hand wrapped around a cup of tea he hadn't ordered before. Something herbal, something unfamiliar. The barista had recommended it, and he didn't say no. He didn't say much these days. Outside, people moved like they had somewhere to be. Inside, the light shifted across the table slowly, like it was in no rush to reach him. The man 2 tables over was arguing on the phone in low tones. A girl near the corner wall was crying quietly into her hands. Calder didn't stare. He noticed and kept still. He'd been staying in the same room at the inn for almost a month now. The staff stopped asking how long he planned to remain. He stopped answering. There was something comforting about repetition. The same blue mug every morning. The same creak in the hallway. The same view of the ocean pretending it never changed. He hadn't spoken to Lorna. Her message was still unread. He'd looked at it through the preview bar more times than he wanted to admit. There was another one now, sent this morning. I've been thinking about everything. I miss who we used to be. He didn't open that one either. The waitress brought him a second cup without asking. He nodded his thanks. His phone buzzed again, but he flipped it face down. Through the glass, he watched an older couple cross the street slowly, arm in arm. Their coats were mismatched. The woman's shoes were far too thin for the wind. But they walked together, heads close, sharing something he couldn't hear. He wondered, not for the first time, what it would feel like to be wanted without needing to prove anything. To be chosen, not out of obligation or history or habit, but simply because someone wanted to stand beside him without checking their reflection every few steps. His tea had gone cold. He paid, left a tip too large for the simplicity of the service, and stepped out into the air. The wind carried the faint smell of salt and old wood. His boots crunched softly on gravel as he walked toward the cliffside, the one with the crooked bench that leaned slightly to the left. He sat there most afternoons now. Didn't bring a book. Didn't bring headphones. Just sat. He still wore his ring. Not because he believed in it, not because he hoped. He just hadn't decided what to do with the absence it would leave behind. The sky darkened slowly. The clouds rolled in like someone drawing a heavy curtain across the day. Calder closed his eyes and listened to the water below, the pull of the air, the shifting of his own breath. And for once, he didn't reach for anything. He just let it all arrive. The hotel bathroom light buzzed slightly, a sound he never noticed during the day. At night, though, it filled the space. Calder stood in front of the mirror with a towel wrapped around his waist. Not shaving, not brushing his teeth, just standing. The kind of stillness that makes the silence louder. Steam rose from the basin. It reminded him of their first apartment, the one with the broken vent that fogged the mirror for an hour after showers. Lorna used to draw little hearts in the glass. One morning, she'd written, "You still like me, right?" beside a lopsided smiley face. That memory arrived out of nowhere. He hadn't thought about it in years. He never answered her question that day. She laughed before he could, said she was joking, but it lingered. So much of it lingers now. Odd things, specific, incomplete. A green dress with fraying sleeves she wore to his company's holiday party. The way she used to tuck her hair behind both ears when she was nervous. A silver bracelet she stopped wearing for no reason. A night she cried after watching a commercial and said it wasn't about the commercial. That night was 6 years ago. He remembered the smell of rain on their windowsill, the way she gripped his shirt in her fist when she finally fell asleep. He didn't ask what she was really crying about. He didn't want to know. He told himself he was protecting her. Now he knows he was protecting himself. Back in the hotel, the mirror had cleared slightly. His reflection stared back at him. Older, leaner, tired in a way sleep didn't fix. He didn't look sad. He looked released, like someone who had stopped pretending to keep something alive. His phone buzzed again. Different tone. A voice message. He didn't open it right away. He sat on the edge of the bed, towel still damp at his back, and let it play from his palm. Calder, I didn't think you'd really leave. You've never been the one to walk away. I keep thinking you'll come back, like you always do. I don't know how to explain what happened. It wasn't anyone else. It wasn't like that. I couldn't find myself anymore. Not in us. Not in you. And maybe that's on me. Or maybe you just stopped seeing me long before I disappeared. Silence. Then, I miss the way we used to laugh in the car. I miss how safe it felt to sit next to you. That's all. She didn't ask him to come home. She didn't say sorry. She didn't know, even now, how far gone she'd been before he ever touched the door handle. Calder set the phone face down again. Not with anger, not even hesitation. He just knew whatever version of her had recorded that message was not the woman who kissed him on their 10th anniversary and whispered, "This still feels brand new." That version of her had left long ago, and now he finally had two. He picked the table near the window not because of the view, but because the light wouldn't hit him directly in his eyes. Lorna was 5 minutes late. Then 8. 10 passed, she walked in. Same coat, same hair, different shoes. He noticed but said nothing. She sat down without speaking, took off her gloves, placed them neatly beside her bag. Her fingers hovered over the silverware but didn't touch it. Neither of them picked up the menu. "You look tired," she said. "I've been sleeping," he replied. She nodded, looked past him, then back. "I didn't expect you to say yes. You asked to talk. I'm listening." A pause, long enough for the waiter to approach, realize nothing was happening, and retreat. Lorna's hands tightened around her water glass. "I've been trying to figure out what to say. It all sounds wrong. You can just say it." She didn't, not right away. She looked at his shirt, the buttons, the line of his jaw, anything but his eyes. "Did you think I didn't notice it slipping?" she asked. "I think you noticed. I think you just didn't want to say it out loud. I thought if I ignored it, it might come back. It doesn't." She exhaled slowly. There wasn't someone else. I know it probably felt like it. It didn't, he said, interrupting her. I never thought there was. Her mouth stayed open for a second, then closed. She looked disappointed. They sat in silence. The sound of dishes clinking from other tables, a baby crying somewhere near the back, wind brushing the windows. Finally, he leaned forward slightly. I'm not angry at you. She looked up. I'm not here to drag the past out and beat it into something clean, he continued. We're not enemies, Lorna. But I won't come back to something that doesn't exist anymore. We tried for a long time. You drifted. I went quiet. That's the shape it took. Her voice was barely audible. Do you ever miss me? He didn't answer that. Instead, he reached into his coat pocket, pulled out the ring, simple, worn, still warm from his palm. He slid it across the table. She stared at it, didn't touch it. Keep it, he said. Or don't. I'm not attached to the symbol, just the years. Lorna blinked rapidly, then swallowed hard. Are we done? No, Calder said. We're already over. This is just the part where we stop pretending. He stood. She didn't. He nodded once, gently. Not with finality, just acknowledgement. Then he walked out of the restaurant. No backward glance, no cinematic music, just the cold air meeting his face and the sudden quiet he no longer feared. The air was warmer than usual. Early spring, maybe. That kind of light that doesn't ask for attention but touches everything anyway. Calder stood barefoot on the sand. Not thinking, not processing, just being. He hadn't made a grand plan for the day. He hadn't written a list or played a sad song or called anyone to say something profound. He had just gotten out of bed at the inn, brewed coffee, opened the window, and for the first time in a long time, didn't feel the weight of waiting for someone else to define the shape of his life. Lorna didn't call again. He didn't expect her to. Some things close without slamming. Some people leave you before the door ever opens. And some endings don't need explanations, just peace. By noon, he packed up what little he brought, said goodbye to the front desk clerk, who smiled and offered him a free stay next time. He smiled back but declined the offer. He drove north along the coast with the windows cracked. The radio played something soft, a song he didn't know but didn't skip. Somewhere along the cliffs, he stopped to take a photo, not to send to anyone, just to keep. He spent the next few nights in a town he'd never visited, where people didn't know his name and where no one ever looked at his left hand. At a small bookstore tucked behind a flower shop, he bought a journal. Not to write about Lorna, but to write about nothing in particular. Thoughts about clouds, descriptions of the way people laugh in cafes, quotes he wanted to remember even if he didn't know why. And then one afternoon, while waiting in line for a sandwich, a woman in a corduroy jacket turned to him and said, I like your shirt. He looked down at it. Plain, faded blue. He smiled. Thanks. It used to be my favorite. Still should be, she said and turned back to order. Nothing flirtatious, nothing heavy, just real. She left before he did. Never looked back. But it stayed with him. The simplicity of it, the clarity. And for the first time in what felt like years, Calder felt something shift. Not pain, not loss, not longing. Just openness. He wasn't starting over. He was simply beginning again. And this time, he didn't need anyone to hold the door. He had his own keys.